Hello, this video is going to be about social changes I've experienced amongst my friends. Well, right off the bat, I think I've mentioned this in a video before, my close circle of friends were immediately accepting, so that was really good. I had kind of talked to a few of them about it while I was still in the progress of figuring out the whole thing. So they weren't, surprised or anything when I started to transition, and they were already ready to start calling me by male pronouns and things like that before I had even asked them to, because I had wanted to wait until I was on hormones until I asked people to call me by male pronouns, just because of my own personal reasons. And then some of them had told me that, even before that point, they felt like using female pronouns wasn't quite right, so that was really great. And my slightly wider circle of friends were also very accepting, but weren't as on point with the pronouns. I think that was just because they were not as familiar with trans issues and were not really aware of how important pronouns are for trans people and what they were doing when they were misgendering me. In terms of how I feel fitting in with my female friends versus my male friends, I still feel very comfortable around all my female friends. Occasionally I feel a little bit more disconnected than I would have pre-T. When you get to things like all-female activities, whereas before it wouldn't have been, unusual for me to be a part of that group, because technically I was female even if I didn't share their immediate interests or, stuff like that. Whereas now it's like more on a technicality where it's like, oh yeah, like an all-female group plus me. Like you do notice the difference now. But in terms of how comfortable I feel with them, that hasn't changed, and I still feel very comfortable around all my female friends. Around my male friends, it's a little bit different, because I feel like, I didn't have that immediate thing of being like one of them at the beginning, if that makes sense. They would have seen me as female, which wouldn't have made them like me less or anything, but there's just this automatic inclusion amongst a lot of groups of male friends, which I feel like I could be a part of that in a friendship way, but not in the same automatic way that I would have been if they had met me as male. That being said though, I've been quite surprised about how accepting and inclusive a lot of my male friends have been, because I kind of felt like for some reason that it would be a harder process with them, and I don't know why, but I mean it definitely wasn't. I was surprised when I went to some parties and stuff where there were mostly guys and they were calling me by male pronouns and including me in things, in the technical sense where it's like girls and guys, like like in drinking games, and even just like in offhand comments. So that was so important for me to hear, to feel included by them, and even if they don't completely feel like, even if they still remember how I was pre-T, and if that kind of affects their judgment of me, at least when they're communicating with me, they just treat me as another guy, which is nice. That being said, even though I am included in things like this, the fact that it kind of surprises me shows me that I still feel a little bit weird about it, just because I'm not used to it for so many years. I wasn't included in that dynamic, and like I said, it's not about shared interests and stuff like that, because I did always have more interest in common with guys than with girls, but it's just this underlying social ties thing, amongst your own gender, this automatic comfort you feel and familiarity, and that's been the most interesting shift, rather than, you know, who I actually hang out with. Just the familiarity I feel in terms of, you know, being amongst people of my own gender, so to speak. What is interesting though is that I completely feel that with other trans guys. I don't feel like we're different in terms of our gender. I don't feel like I'm trying to fit in with them, or that I've been disconnected from them. I feel like, you know, we are one and the same. It's like being with the other guys. And I guess you might think, you know, well, obviously, like we are trans guys, we understand that experience, but it's, I don't know, like literally there's just so much more comfort there. And I think it's because, you know, they've been through the same thing, and they understand that weird shift in dynamic that you get, and they're also just being themselves, so it's more comfortable. You know, you don't have to worry about what they think of your gender, or if they really see you as who you are, because they do, and because they've gone through the same struggle. Alright, I think I'll leave this video there. I'm sure I'll have more to say about this in the future, so hopefully this was interesting. And obviously this is my own experience, and this isn't bound to happen with, you know, anybody who transitions, but this is just what's happened to me, and so that's all I have to say.